Final hour overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to an SGP, same game parlay for the Thursday nighter tonight. Packers at home against the Lions, week 4. Starting off in style, a battle of the NFC North. You've got Lambeau under the lights. It doesn't get any better than that. And it's going to be a great week in the NFL. You got the NHL still going, NBA showing up early next week, and the Jays are in action again tonight. Let's see how many hits they get tonight. Got to think you're going to need 7 or 8 minimum, at least 4 or 5 runs on the board. Who's on the mound for the
Yankees?
Luke Weaver is his name. Not exactly a stud. Not a household name.
Did they get him the last time in New York?
I don't recall them hitting against Weaver last time in New York. I think it was just Cole and King, and then I can't remember who they faced in the first game.
They just got me on a downward trend again, Hayes, where it's like, I don't know so a stud pitcher comes up, and playoffs, it's all about pitching. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you just can't hit against good pitching? That would be concerning.
Yeah, like when they go ice cold, man, they really go ice cold. Like to have 5 combined hits in 2 games in like big moments,
right,
is concerning. And
what also is concerning is Texas. It was like, it wasn't 4 innings. It was 4 straight games of nonsense. It's like they didn't let up. Like it didn't stop. So it's like, is this little downward turn they're just going to say, well, can't beat the Yankees and we're done? I don't know.
Well, they're streaky. They lost 4 in a row, won 5 in a row. You know, they've been – so it's one or the other. And right now it's the unfortunate – it's the latter. Like they've been struggling. Like they don't look good. And something has to give. Like a big boy has to – now it might be Springer. It has to be somebody that drags him out, you know. But Bichette doesn't look very comfortable at all.
No. Vladdy had a couple home runs, over the weekend. But since then, it doesn't matter. There's no element of consistency there, right? And you look at the lineup tonight, they're mixing things up. Belt's just come off the IL, but he had 2 hits yesterday. They're putting him second in the lineup tonight. They got Bichette hitting cleanup. They got Chapman hitting 8th. Varsho hitting 9th. I mean, that's a black hole. Until those guys prove otherwise, there's no reason to believe they'll come alive. Kiermaier hitting 7th. Like Kiermaier into Chapman into Varsho is just not going to lead to a lot of confidence. And I'm curious if Chapman gets, 4 at-bats tonight. Like if he struggles through a couple of at-bats, at what point do you just pinch hit for him and say, we got to get this guy out? Like we got to find a way to do something here.
Aren't you trying to get him, though? It's a chicken or the egg because if he's struggling, but you need him for the playoffs.
Yes.
And I still think statistically they're still right there, aren't they? Like what's the...
Oh, yeah, they're still statistically in the driver's seat, Noodles. Yeah,
right.
There's a lot of different, ways this can break out between Seattle, Texas, Houston. The tiebreak, they have the tiebreak on Houston. They don't on Seattle and Texas. Texas a couple games up. It's more than likely Texas is home free, and I think is going to win the West, although we've said that before.
Right.
It's probably between them, Seattle, and Houston. And Seattle's got 4 games against Texas. Houston's off tonight, then 3 in Arizona. You win 1 ball game, I think they're probably in. I do. I think if they win 2 of the next 4, I think they're pretty much definitely in.
Right.
But with every loss, it becomes more and more clear that you're opening the door for someone to pass you. So
Look
that's
at the scenarios.
There's a million different scenarios, and really, you want to get greedy. You want to avoid Gausman pitching Sunday. That is the worst case scenario where he's got to pitch. He's got to pitch well, and he takes himself out of game 1 of the wild card. But listen, you got to punch your ticket, right? If they lose between here and Sunday, or there's a situation where if they lose on Sunday, they're going to miss. He's got to pitch, and the focus is going to be on game 162. It can't be on game 1 of the wild card. So more on that a little bit later this hour. Our best bets, again, brought to you by FanDuel. Mark Masters will join us here in a moment. The Leafs are off today, a full off day, after playing at the Joe Thornton Community Center, which I think it's cool when NHLers go to small rinks.
Yeah.
When they play you play in a small rink with like 3,000 people packed in there and a bunch of kids.
I thought they could have spiced up a few more of the stars, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
I don't know. I know it's training camp and not everybody wants to do anything, but it's like you're going to small town Ontario, maybe spruce it up a tiny little bit with no disrespect to who was in the lineup. I thought they could have added a couple more elite players.
You're talking one of the big four who were taking
I don't know.
BP last night?
I just feel like all those kids and people are there. It's like,
I know, but then
try
what
to
happens
give them
we just talked about it in the last hour, and then some Yahoo runs him over, or gets a tap on the laces, or blocks a shot.
That's fine. I was just thinking if that was me, everybody would want to see Austin Matthews out there. You know what I mean?
I think Marner's the guy you look at because he played in London. Right?
Sure.
He's one of the great Knights players of all time.
But at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to make an ordeal of it. I just would have liked to seen a couple more studs out there.
I think you guys can speak to it, though, as vets. Like, it's like spring training. Veterans never play road games. Like, they do not get on a bus. They fly into Dunedin, and they don't leave Dunedin. Like, they're like, we're not moving. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Leafs were like, do you guys want to get on a bus? And the boys are like,
it's like one section of the studs. Like, in the NHL, it's like the second line gets jammed up.
Mm-hmm.
The second and fourth line, it's like you're doing the away games basically, boys, and the other guys are doing the home games.
Well, John Tavares was down there, right? Like he made his preseason debut, and he's got a connection to that neighborhood, and I think that's cool that he was down there. Max Domi was a London Knight. Max was down there. He scored last night. And Mark Masters.
All right.
Right? Mark Masters. That's all that matters. Mark Masters was down there doing what he always does.
Stars in the building, exactly. Stars in the building, Masters Nation.
Here's our Maple Leaf reporter, Mark Masters. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, guys. I go where the story takes me.
That's right. Yeah, journalistic integrity, man. That's how I would define you. And how we feeling about a week into camp here? And we got a few preseason games under our belt. Where is the story leading you at this point?
I should quote Austin Matthews, who said yesterday, it's only been a week, but it feels like the preseason's been going forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready. I'm pretty much ready for the regular season to get going. I feel like most of this team is, but there's still a lot to go. I mean, the Easton Cowan story was nice for a bit, carried us a little bit, and we'll see where we go. Samsonov's going to get into one of these games, so that'll be interesting to see. We still haven't seen TJ Brody in a game. Yarncroke's dealing with an injury, so there's still some things to play out here, but yeah, and now this Klingberg injury certainly could shake things up in defense. We'll get some clarity maybe on that tomorrow, but that will certainly be one of the storylines to watch as we get into this pair of games on the weekend.
Mark, we were talking about battles in training camp, and you just talked about it. Like, there doesn't seem to be a lot because you've got a veteran team and you're just trying to make it through preseason. Have you circled one or two guys that you've either liked or would like to see more from, maybe at the bottom of the roster, in one of those spots in that third or fourth line or farther down the defensive core?
Well, I mean, you're watching Noah Gregor for sure because he's on a tryout, but he's been impressive, and Sheldon Keith has a couple of times praised him, sometimes not even asked about Sam Lafferty after the game the other night, brought up Gregor's speed alongside him. So it sure feels like he's in good position to earn a contract. So you're watching that. I'm always watching Robertson because it feels like he's on the outside right now, has to really do something, have an amazing camp. I mean, he had an amazing camp last year and did not start with the team right away. So it feels like he'd have to be, incredible to make it this year, and even then might need an injury. Nyes, as well as a guy, because, he was so good at the end of last year, and you're wondering, okay, how's he going to come into the season? I think he's looked good. So those are kind of the guys you're keeping an eye on. Because again, like the fourth line camp's there, Reeves is there, that. And then more so than the battles, you're kind of just seeing chemistry. Domi and Nylander look good together in Ottawa that one game. We'll see Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Marner. Maybe there wasn't the flash that you're looking for, but it's so early. So that's more so than the battles when you get a team like the Leafs, for me at least, that you're fixated on.
Masters, where do you think this Trevor Timmins stands? It seems like if it was a different player, it'd be like, oh my God, he got 4 points. Like he's on the team, he's a regular, he's a stud. But it seems like this Timmins guy's got the kind of aura about him where it's like, well, he got 4 points, but he's still in the backseat looking up. Like, this guy, what does he need to do to be an NHLer? Like, do you think he's got a chance, or where do you think he's at?
Yeah, 6 points in the 2 games, and Keith said he probably should have more. If guys had finished in his first game, he could have had more. But they know he produces points, and that's what he said. That's what Keith says. We know he creates offense. That's never been a question with him. The question is, can they rely on him defensively? And, I said, this has got to be great for your confidence. What does this do for you after that game last night? And he's just like, oh, the points are nice, and I guess it's a bit of a confidence boost, but that is not what I'm focused on at all. I got to prove that I can win battles in the corner. I can break out the puck reliably. He stayed in Toronto all off season, worked with the strength staff, the nutritionist. He's added some strength. So that's what he's focused on, and that's what Sheldon Keith wants to hear. He's off to a great start, but it's hard to build up trust sometimes with the coach. They got to believe that you're going to be able to go out there against good players and not turn over the puck. And they didn't play him a lot down the stretch last year, obviously. They brought in guys, and there's now this opportunity. You lose Luke Shen and Justin Hall to free agency. They bring in Klingberg, but you would think, if not now, when for Conor Timmins? Would you lose him on waivers if you put him there? So what does he have to do is he's just got to prove that he's more than an offensive guy at this stage of his career, and that's what he's focused on, and he's off to a good start so far. Even with the points, he's kind of handled things well in every facet of the game. He gets a bit scrambly at times, but I think he's been pretty steady for the most part early in camp.
Well, and he's also dealing with a new GM, right? Like this, yep. He's a Dubas guy. Dubas brought him in. Dubas signed him. I think he played in the Sioux. Brad Treliving signed John Klingberg, and Klingberg's a vet. He's making more money. I do wonder if the Klingberg injury, if it's something more than just a week and a half, if it leads into the season, if that's an obvious transition, Timmins just takes his spot. But Klingberg's playing. Like Klingberg, if he's healthy, will be one of the six. And Brody's playing on the right side. And I think Liljegren's playing. So I don't see the spot for Timmins, which is wild because you're right, the guy had 4 points. And generally that causes
rocket
a big
shots
stir.
from the point under the bar. If that was anybody else, we'd be like, oh, wow. The front page Toronto Sun, I'd be everywhere. This guy's going to make the Leafs with that guy. It was like, oh, it was Trevor Timmins. He's got to be better next game.
It's Connor.
Connor Timmins.
Connor Timmins. That's a perfect explanation.
That's where I'm going to go.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Connor, I got your name. I know a Trevor Timmins from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure you do.
But, from the right shot defenseman for the Leafs.
Yeah, back in the day, I knew Trevor Timmins.
No, honestly, though, I see him as a 7. Like, if everybody's healthy, guys, he's probably their 7, correct?
Yeah,
so
I think you're right. Yep.
So it's not a bad thing, but if he does get an opportunity with a Klingberg injury or out a little bit longer, then you've got to seize it. And you're right, putting points up, but playing responsible, I think that's what's going to impress the coach. And this is what preseason's for. Preseason is different for everybody. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, get your timing back. I watched McDavid and Draisaitl play last night. Their power play was not clicking. They didn't look really sharp. They just kind of played, got through the game. But the guys farther down in the lineup who are battling for position and battling for pecking order, a guy like Timmins, it really means a lot, and he's got to show up and be a difference maker every shift, because every shift will be under the microscope from a coaching staff standpoint and a trust standpoint. So it is big for him in the preseason.
100%. I mean, Brody, we'll see how he gets off to. They could always move him to his strong side to the left. They did that in the playoffs. They could find ways. We'll see how Giordano starts the season. He's going to be 40 in a couple days. They could find ways. The cap is tricky. In terms of the gymnastics that they might have to do. And if someone goes on LTIR, maybe that, creates flexibility. But, when you're looking at the start of camp, he looked like a guy that might be a cap casualty, depending on how things play out. Obviously, when you got Pridham working things behind the scenes, they always seem to find a way to make things happen. But as you mentioned, Brian, he's not, he's the Dubas. He was brought in by Dubas when they were having all the injuries on defense early last season. Trey Living brings in Klingberg, and he's brought in some other defensive guys too. So Benoit's getting healthy. He practiced in a regular jersey. We'll probably see him at some point here in the next few days, Lajoie. So they have some options. He was under the gun, Timmins, to get off to a good start. He's done that, but he's got to keep it going. He's got to keep the pressure on. And if Klingberg's out for a bit, he's got to show he can be the guy, because one of the storylines coming into this season is they got to get some more offense from the defense. It can't just be Morgan Riley. Timmins is capable of it if he can show he's a well-rounded guy.
Mark, when you talk to William Nylander, I think you're around these guys every day. You can get a vibe of where their head's at. When the idea of playing center, like when you look at him, do you truly believe that it's something that he wants to do? I don't know if I want to say it's dying to do, but you think he's down with it, or is it just like, well, that's what they want me to do, so I'll do it?
he doesn't first of all, it's always hard to kind of get a read on him just because he's kind of the same personality and attitude with everything. But it's not like, you said he hasn't been like you don't get the sense that he's got this great, like he's been like Matthews. Let's juxtapose it this way. Matthews sounds like he's really wanting to kill penalties, like he's campaigning for it. He wants to do it. He's been in the meetings. He says enough is enough. I want to show I can do this. I want to add this. This makes me a complete player. I've seen all the other big stars killing penalties around the league. It's time. But when Nylander's asked about it, and he has played center sparingly at times, it hasn't really worked out. He's just kind of like, yeah, I told Sheldon I'll play wherever he needs me. It's not like, yeah, I was drafted as a center and I've been waiting and I'll get the puck in the middle. He's like, yeah, I'll get the puck in the middle more, but now I might not get as many breakaways. So, no, I don't get the sense that he's got a burning desire to be a center in the NHL. I get the sense that he's happy-go-lucky, he's willing to do it, and if it works, great. If not, he knows he can go back to wing, no problem. And even talking to Tavares a couple days ago and saying, what do you make of this new format? And you're not, you don't have Nylander or Marner on the wings. You get the sense he's like, yeah, this is a great opportunity for me to raise my game early in camp, help Nyes and Lafferty get off to a good start. So you get the sense everyone's kind of waiting to see how this is going to play out. Everyone, of course, is happy to go along, and when you're a team that's good and you have the talent, you can experiment, and they should. But no, I don't get the sense talking to Nylander that he's like revving and like, let's make this center thing. I've been waiting for this thing. No, I don't get that sense.
With Mark Masters, our Maple Leaf reporter, so some pretty massive news earlier today that Andrei Vasilevskiy, superstar goaltender for Tampa, has undergone back surgery. He's out for 8 to 10 weeks. That's their timeline. There's no guarantee. At a minimum, it's going to be 8 to 10. But I think there's a chance it could be beyond that. And there's a chance he just won't find his form, for quite some time. Mm-hmm. These guys have been the kings of the Atlantic, kings of the East, really kings of the NHL for about a handful of years now. How big of an impact do you think that has on Tampa's season? And what do you think the other teams in the Atlantic are thinking, knowing that Vasilevskiy won't be available for at least 20, 25 games?
Well, if I'm the Leafs and I'm saying this is time to win the Atlantic. They've said they've made winning the division their goal in the past, and they haven't done it, and they always seem to fall behind really quickly. And Austin Matthews, when I asked him what his mindset is coming into the season, what he's focused on, he's like, I want to help this team get off to a good start. They've had some tough Octobers the last 2 years, but the door is open there. Florida's got injuries, of course. Now Vasilevskiy in Tampa. Boston, obviously, dealing with some absences. We'll see how they adjust with Bergeron and Krejci. If you're the Leafs, I don't know. I'm sure everyone in the Atlantic has the same kind of idea. Let's take advantage here with what's going on with Vasilevskiy out. But if I'm the Leafs, I'm saying we gotta let's go. Let's put some real distance between us and them early in this season and win the Atlantic, and that would be something new going into the playoffs and give you a different bit of a feel. So, yeah, it's funny that Curtis McElhinney's been hanging around the management team, the Leafs management team, and he was at the game last night, and he's been at the practices, and we'll see what happens with Martin Jones and if they can sneak him through waivers. But this goaltending depth is important, and we'll see what the Lightning do because they don't have a ton of it when you look at their depth chart. But the Leafs would feel good. They've been careful with Samsonov in this camp. They focused on conditioning with him. They didn't want to play him early. They put a priority on revving these guys up properly. Goaltending depth is important. The Leafs feel like they have it. For now, at least. And, yeah, if I'm the Leafs, I'm sitting there saying, it's go time. Let's get off to a good start and put some distance between us and the Lightning.
Yeah, and someone's got to go on waivers, though, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Someone's got to go on waivers, whether it's Joseph Wall or Martin Jones. And, they're
not going to be Wall, though, right?
I don't think it should be. But as Noodles said earlier, Jones looked pretty good. He's played pretty well.
He's looked good in both of his games. He's looked very steady. He had a good season. If you look at his body of work with Seattle last year, he was basically their starter. Really good. And Seattle was a playoff team. They got him on the cheap. There's a lot of goaltenders that could be pegged as number threes this season that will be on waivers sooner than later. I just saw Vancouver, I think, put Spencer Martin on, that he's their number 3. He was their number 2 last year, but they got Casey DeSmith, who played last night, as their number 2. And, Alex Lyon,
sucks, Noodles,
for example.
You can't have, and I know you've talked about your e-bug and stuff. It kind of sucks you can't have a 3 spot. Come on.
Every team. I'm telling you right now, if you ask me for one rule change, and I know people talk about different things, from a roster standpoint, every team should have 3 goaltenders on the roster. And if it's a cap issue, make the third goaltender under $1 million. And he's doesn't count against your cap. Somebody under $1 million, and that's your third goaltender. I want to say there was 119. I'd have to double check. 119 goalies that played in the league last year and the year before, type of thing. North of 100. So that's 3 per team. Ottawa had 7.
Amazing.
Vegas had 6.
It would save some chaos.
It would save some
line.
chaos.
Yeah.
It would provide stability too. Because as we're seeing it, a little tweak here, a little injury there, and all of a sudden you're chasing it. Now, if you want to get the guy to the minors, you might not be able to get him down there because of the depth of somebody else's organization.
Right. No.
Masters, how's your game? What do you do to kind of build things up for the regular season?
I don't. I'm just go full throttle. That's the only way I know. Let's gangbusters. Let's go. I'm doing 2, practice yesterday, drive down to St. Thomas. They want to take a day off today. That's fine. I'm ready to go tomorrow and fly to Montreal. We got 2 games at the Bell Center. Just the more the better. That's how I rev myself up. I just throw myself into it. It's like, done with tennis and let's get on with the Leafs here. I'm pumped.
Boy. Any bilingual trivia in Montreal you can find, or what?
Yeah, well, that's tough, right? Flying in, and tomorrow night we got a game. Maybe afterwards, Friday night in Montreal, I'm sure I can maybe stir up a little trivia somewhere down by the Bell Center, because the Leafs will fly home. I won't have a morning skate to go to for the Leafs, because they'll have a whole new group that comes to Montreal the next day. So it's not like I'm waking up to get back to the morning skate the next day. So yeah,
I think that's a big time mistake, Masters. Why not send the whole group there on a big night in Montreal, some team bonding, and then let it rip against the Habs again?
That's right, floor it.
Well, if you're the big boys that let's say the top guys aren't coming tomorrow night, they're playing Saturday. Well, how would you feel about coming in a night early instead of having a night at home, right? And then from a team perspective, it just adds having double the body. But yeah, it would be great if they just brought the whole team, make it a bonding thing. They have their bonding trip next week. They'll go to Gravenhurst like they always do. They'll have a golf day and then a practice day up there.
Gravenhurst or Montreal?
Yeah.
Pretty
Problem
simple.
is, you end up, it could go very, very deep in Montreal. Gravenhurst, I think there's some problems. You know what? Curtis McElhinney, if he's a guy who could make a comeback. He's always in great shape. I worked with him in Calgary. He's an awesome guy. Mm-hmm. And you remember the save he made on Sid, the left toe save.
2016.
Didn't that put them in the playoffs?
It did. That's what got them in.
They needed that. He was legendary. That was a huge moment.
Freddie Anderson pulled the pin.
They lost to Columbus the next night. If they beat Columbus, they would have played Ottawa, I think. It's sickening. We were in the building, alumni box, pesto chicken.
I just remember the left pad. That was the save of the season because did he come off the bench to make that save?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Freddie had enough.
Oh.
Freddie. What a sliding doors moment, though, Brian, that if they win and they play Ottawa and maybe they win that series, the whole feeling of this whole core changes and they go on a run, instead of Ottawa going to Game 7 of the Eastern Final, maybe it's late. But that's a sliding door moment right there. Could have changed everything. But
you're right.
Yeah, the building was dead. They lost to a Columbus team playing out the stretch that day.
They were leading. Remember, they're up 1-0, I think. And Columbus was done. It didn't matter for Columbus.
Crazy stuff.
Crazy.
Anytime you and your boy Jonas want to do a trivia kind of retro night, is it me and Hazy? Yeah. And Noodles host it. We'll take you guys on for old time's sake.
Yeah, whenever you want a piece. We'll let you have another shot, Mark.
Yeah. Well, I got beat up pretty bad by Shapovalov at Wimbledon, so that set me back a little bit. So I haven't won.
You were playing trivia with Shapo at Wimbledon?
Yeah. Well, they had all these rain delays, and the big storyline, of course, trivia just seems to follow me everywhere, even across the pond. But that was the big thing. Is there was this big rain out, 2 days of rain. What are you doing, Shapo? He's all the Canadian guys are playing trivia, and I'm like, you don't say. Well, let's do some trivia here, and he's dropping these questions on me, and I'm getting them wrong, and he's asking me to name a mammal, and I'm not even naming a mammal. I've got a reptile. It was pretty embarrassing.
That's disappointing.
What's
man.
Death Row been up to? What about Death Row? Is he trying to mow your lawn for more tennis stuff or what?
Oh, 100% always. He was in New York laughing it up. But, hey, listen, it didn't work out this year. Canadians didn't win a match. I don't think that ever. Oh, it happened once on my watch. French Open 2015, but then I got it back on the rails. So, bro, that was a tough U.S. Open there. I had a good Wimbledon. It was a tough year for Canadian tennis, but I got Dennis to the fourth round.
That's right.
Bianca played in the third round on center court, gave Ons Jabeur all she could handle. I was proud of what I was able to push Canadian tennis to at Wimbledon, but U.S. Open death row, it wasn't there. But yeah, he's my new partner, right? Not Jonas. Jonas dropped me a bag of potatoes, and our relationship hasn't really been the same since. But yeah,
perfect. All right, you and Death Row.
All right,
tennis is ready to roll.
All right, you're an inspiration to us all, Mark. We appreciate it, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Mark Masters joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. Check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Him and Chapo. You got to think Shapovalov. Like, get me into London, man. Piccadilly Circus or something. We got a rain delay.
That guy is like a big, good-looking guy, and
man.
He's like, that is tough.
He's not hanging out at Wimbledon doing trivia. No chance.
I just can't imagine that transaction. Like, if it was some kind of, like, stuck in a city and he was like, hey, O-Dog, you want to play trivia? And I didn't know the guy, I would just, no.
You're right, though, about Montreal, though, man. This could be a real – you play all the vets on the Friday night and say – you guys are sticking around for the Saturday game. We just need you up in the press box.
You go in today.
Or go in today.
You practice in the afternoon. You have a dinner. You practice again tomorrow. You play 2 games, and you come home Monday morning.
Yes.
It's a great bonding experience.
Oh, man, it is outstanding. Montreal.
How about that as far as travel arrangements?
Yeah, the best. The best.
It would be.
All right, our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Don Greca will join us from New York. That's coming up next. All right, we'll get to our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Jays, Yankees tonight. Packers, Lions. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a great night. And as a Packer fan, I'm obviously rooting for the Packers, although I bet against them earlier this afternoon. I will lay the 2 points with Detroit.
A lot of people. You know the crew. You know the crew. That's
scummy
Packers.
Play. I understand that. I'm not rooting against it.
No,
right?
you've done it before, though. I will say that. You've done it before.
That's right. I'm a man of integrity when it comes to gambling, right? I've always stated that. Jays have 5 hits through 2 games. Yankees are mailing it in. Yankees aren't even trying to win. They don't care one way or the other, and they're playing spoiler, I guess. Sign of the times. The Yankees are playing spoiler. I wonder how the city of New York is responding to that. Let's head down there now, catch up with the co-host of the Michael Kay Show on ESPN New York. He's been on the show before. We've played a lot of his clips in the past. We love having him on. Here's Don Greca. How you doing, Don?
Oh, listen, we pivoted from bad baseball to bad football.
Yes.
Well, what do we got? I mean, we're looking forward to what are the Rangers and Knicks going to do at this point. But it is odd to see the Yankees in the situation they're in. But fans crying, oh, my God, such a miserable season. Oh, my, what an awful fire, everybody. They're still going to finish out of last place. They're still going to finish above 500. Some teams wish they can have that kind of a bad season.
Right.
What's the heat down there like? Everybody talks about the big market and the pressure and the heat that comes with it and losing, as opposed to a smaller market. Like, what is the temperature down there for the Yanks, or even all the sports teams that are struggling? You look at the Jets and the Giants, and how much heat goes on.
Well, it varies, but for the Yankees, it's worse because they're the one team where the mission statement is championship or bust. Mm-hmm. Like last year, they made it to the Final Four. They went to the League Championship Series, and they had a guy break the American League record for home runs, and all we got all year long was fire Cashman, fire Boone. I can't believe we didn't win a championship. And it was all summer. I mean, they started the year last year as like the best team in baseball. They're going to break the record for wins, and all they did was complain that Joey Gallo's hitting under 200. And no other team's held to the standard the Yankees are held to, and it's their fault. I mean, they talk. Brian Cashman comes on our air and says it's not about a championship, it's about championships. Well, you haven't won one since 2009. How about winning the first one, and then we can start talking about dynasties again. So they're held to an impossible standard, and their fans just are so difficult to deal with because 80% of sports would wish they were in the Yankee shoes, and the Yankee fans wish they were in somebody else's.
Where are you at with a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, where he either hits a home run or he just strikes out and he can't run anymore, and I believe he's got 4 years left on his deal?
Yeah, he can't run. He can't play the field. He's hitting under 190. I know batting average doesn't matter anymore, but when you're batting on the interstate, and listen, if he's healthy, which he never is, by the way, he hit 40 home runs, but and you can't move him. What are you going to do? I mean, he's got a no-trade clause, and who'd want him? He can't play the field. He can't run.
Why can't he run? Like,
that's
what
a great
happened?
question. Don't know. Nobody seems to know. I don't know whether he forgot to run or he just swings so hard. He's built like a brick you-know-what house. But he's the slowest guy in the league. He got thrown out. It was a double play with a play in the hold of the shortstop where anybody, we all would have beaten it out. I'm not saying that just exaggerating. We would have. He is going to get thrown out. I'm telling you. He is going to, because he hits the ball so hard. If there was still some season left, there's a chance that I think the center fielder could throw him out from first base.
I agree with you. That was the Jays that happened twice. That was in New York last week when Bichette turned that against the Sanchez, and he turned it to first base to get him, and it was insane how slow he was.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible. He's got years left on his contract, and nobody's going to want him, and he's got a no-trade clause, so good luck. They're going to have to eat the contract, but I don't know. Hal Steinbrenner's not Steve Cohen, so I don't know if he's willing to eat that contract.
No kidding. Well, what about Sunday night? You got Taylor Swift. Apparently, he's going to be there. Is that like the story of the night for you, Don? Because you can't talk about the Jets. You can't talk about Zach Wilson.
I don't want to listen. I've heard there's nothing worse in radio than hearing Michael Kay say Tay-Tay. I don't want to talk about it. And you know what? I love football, but that game's not going to be good. No. And all they're going to do is show her. I think it's a work, by the way. I don't think that they may be dating, but come on, who sends a press release out that they're going to a football game? I mean, we're getting played here, and NBC's looking for anything but to show the field because Kansas City should be able to beat them up pretty good. And 9.5-point spread right now, last I looked. How many times you see a home dog to that extent, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, because you remember, and NBC, they get drunk on this stuff. Remember when Rob Ryan was the D coordinator in Dallas? They showed him more than Jason Garrett.
Right.
So now they're going to be showing Taylor. Listen, I'm a metal guy, so don't even get me started. Listen, she's fine. She's great looking. She's very talented, but I don't need to see her 50 times during the course of the football game. I'm good.
Donnie,
Canadian Swifties come after me.
No, listen, you're not alone, man. A lot of people are kind of saying the same thing. A lot of people.
Where are you at, with the Rodgers injury? Like, how quickly was that like popping a balloon as far as how excited people were with the Jets to the point where it's like, now we have Zach Wilson, now we're in trouble?
You couldn't go from, like, usually you say 0 to 60, like 60 to 0. All summer we talked about this guy and how exciting the Jets were going to be, and how I didn't know if they were going to be winning a Super Bowl, especially in that conference, but they were going to make the playoffs for the first time since 2010, and they were going to be able to make a run, and it was going to be exciting. And then 4 plays in, and then the Zach Wilson, and I still thought they could make it work with Zach just because I think the team is so talented. But he just can't get anything going at all. I mean, and I don't, for the life of me, we can't figure out down here how you didn't go out and get a veteran quarterback to back up a guy that's going to be 40 years old in December. We knew Zach couldn't play. They let Mike White go. Tim Boyle isn't an NFL quarterback. He's just here because, I guess he mows Nathaniel Hackett's lawn or something. And then they finally get Trevor Siemian, but he's not going to challenge Zach as bad as Zach is. It's just incredible how these poor fans, they've been waiting for something exciting for the last decade, and they get it pulled right out from under them. It's so unfair.
With Don LaGreca of ESPN, the other team in New York is the Giants, and we saw that they're like a small favorite, I think, on Monday night against Seattle, and I can't figure that out based on the way they've been playing all season. They just got smoked against the Niners. We saw what happened in Week 1 against the Cowboys. They squeak out a win against Arizona. We talk about Daniel Jones all the time and whether or not he was worth the money, whether or not he can actually pay off that investment for the Giants. Where do you stand on the likelihood of Jones being a quarterback that works for the Giants for the next 5 to 7 years?
We hear it here in New York, like, why'd they pay him all that money? But, $40 million is not what you pay franchise quarterbacks. So, unfortunately, you got to pay a lot of money for quarterbacks, but it's not like he's making the $50-60 million that, franchise quarterbacks make. I think he's a good quarterback. I do. They were missing 2 starting offensive linemen, including their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, in a game against San Francisco on the road against one of the best defenses in football. Dallas is an incredible defensive team, too. So they were banged up. I think somewhere in between lies how good they are. The first half against Arizona where they were awful, and then when they were great coming back from that huge deficit. I think they're much like they were last year, maybe 8-9 wins. I don't think it's really Daniel Jones' fault. I'd like to see them get the running game going a little bit. Obviously, losing Saquon hurts. They've got more weapons than they had last year, which is not really saying much. They didn't have any weapons last year. But if you're not beating Seattle, guys, that's a team you're going to be competing with for a wild card spot. So if you're not going to be able to beat Seattle at home, no offense to Seattle, but how can you consider yourself a playoff team? So I think this is a huge game on Monday. Unfortunately, Daniel Jones is 1-11 in primetime games, so I don't know if you want to play due or whatever, but I think there is talent there, and I do like the coaching staff. But you got to get some wins, and based on what we've seen so far this year, you just can't have a ton of confidence that they're going to make the playoffs.
Don, the last time we saw Patrick Kane, he was in a Ranger uniform. You would have been following that closely. Now he's had a major surgery. They're posting videos of him doing stops and starts. He looks great. Good. He looks great. Open ice, stops and starts. But what's your read on Kane and the likelihood of him either returning to the New York area? It sounds like Buffalo's going to be hot on that. You saw him last. I mean, do you think he can get back to the glory days or even close to that?
Nah, in the glory days, no. But can he be a serviceable player, help out? He had flashes last year, but just didn't do enough. Neither did really Tarasenko. So much excitement getting those guys at the deadline or around the deadline, and it just never transpired. The talk here seems to be that, maybe when he's ready to play in November or December, that there might be room for him on the roster to make it work. Buffalo seems to make sense. That's where he's from. But I don't know, guys. This Ranger team is going nowhere unless they get a lot from Kakko and Lafreniere. You saw what the Devils did. Why did the Devils become all of a sudden the favorite to everybody's sweetheart pick to win the Cup? Because all of a sudden Heishier and Hughes found it and lived up to being the first overall picks, and they added so much of a dynamic to them offensively. When are the Rangers going to get that from Kakko and Lafreniere? They've gotten flashes from Hedel, so you know what Panarin is, you know what Kreider is, you know what Zibanejad is. But if these guys are going to step up, it's not going to be, Patrick Kane saving the day. It's going to be Lafreniere and Kakko reaching to to justify the first and second overall picks. Even though that Lafreniere draft wasn't a great one, but that's how I see this Ranger season going. If they get better than average play from those guys, I think there's enough to finish in third place in the Metropolitan Division to make the playoffs.
Yep, it's going to be a tough ride for sure, but getting started in less than 2 weeks, you'll be all over it. As always, he is Don LaGreca, the Michael K. Show, ESPN Radio in New York. Great catching up with you, Don. Thank you for doing this.
Listen, I love it. Anytime you need me, man, I'm for you.
You got it. There he is, Don LaGreca. Don. We love Don. Played a lot of his
That's a great point
the
about the Rangers, man. It's like Jersey Devils. Why do you think they took a jump? It's because Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier played like studs.
Yeah, they did.
Like the guys they drafted them to be.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, those two kids that he talked about in the Rangers, you're going to be third-line players. It doesn't help us.
Lafreniere's creeping closer and closer to bust territory, man. Like he's a year away.
It's not bust, Hayes. It's a third-line player, which I guess if you drafted him
that's a bust for first overall.
Okay, then if you want to describe it as that, I guess that's fair. Because we didn't draft you to be a third-line player. We drafted you first overall to be an impact player to help our team get better. Mm-hmm. And on a third line, you're basically not doing that.
Yeah,
you're a guy.
Exactly. I mean, it's all relative, right? I know that's a harsh term, but if you get a third liner in the third round, that's a great pick. I think you get a third rounder, 28th overall, it's a great pick. But when you have the first overall pick,
and it turns out to be like a workman-like third-line left winger that scores 15 goals, that's not what you were hoping for.
Not even close.
Take a look at that draft, guys. How do you think LA would rather have Stutzler or Byfield?
Yeah.
Do you think the Rangers would have Stutzler? Like Stutzler right now seems to be the best player out of
you're
that.
Right. Yep.
Right? There's Lafreniere, Byfield, Stutzler, Raymond, Jake Sanderson. That's the top five. And Ottawa got 3 and 5.
Probably the two guys players you want the best. Yeah, the most, right?
Yeah,
Raymond set ups and downs and
I mean Raymond I think had 20 goals. Like I think he's going to be a player. But, these guys are all 21 years old. You got to give them Raymond had 23 2 years ago. Like, I think they're going to be fine. But you're right. What is Lafreniere? What is Kakko? Like, those guys have to push through. And if their ceiling is third line, so be it. But they're not. That's not super impact. That's more support staff, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So,
and like a first overall, that was a big part of it. We're bottoming out. We're not that good. Then we're going to come back up. Second overall pick, first overall. Like Kakko, I think, is even further behind Lafreniere. Or close.
I mean, watch him some nights, and I'm like, I still don't even know what you are or what you're capable of. It's just a guy out there.
Right. Like his names were, they were coming up at the trade deadline. You know, like the Rangers, they didn't flip them, but there were rumors that those guys could be available. I wouldn't be shocked if they were come this deadline if it turns out to be a similar situation. Comedy icon Jerry Seinfeld will be performing live May 10th at Casino Rama. Here's your chance to win a pair of tickets to the show. 416-870-1050. Caller 5 right now. 416-870-1050. At caller 5 at 416-870-1050. You're picking up a pair of tickets to see comedy legend Jerry Seinfeld. Ticket pre-sale is on now. On sale starts tomorrow at 12 p.m. at Ticketmaster.ca. Ticketmaster.ca. Caller 5-416-870-1050. Week 4 in the NFL starts tonight. We'll tee that up. Jays Yankees tonight. We'll get to our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. We'll do that next. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Sam Laporta, alternate yards receiving 25-plus tonight. Romeo Dobbs, alternate yards receiving 25-plus. And I like the under in the game tonight, 45.5. That parlay pays plus 248. I just feel like this is, 24-21 game, 23-20 game, maybe 21-17. I think both defenses play well tonight. I think both quarterbacks, Jerry Goff on the road, okay, not great. Jordan Love's still young offense. So I'm going to take the under tonight. Today's best bet's powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of our OverDrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. You must be 18+, physically located in Ontario. So it's going to be a great one tonight with the Packers and the Lions under the lights at Lambeau. You got Jays Yankees. The Dome is open. I don't know why they ever close the Dome. It's just sunny all the time. Weather in Toronto's been great.
It's supposed to be gross next week. Amazing next week.
Like Sunday's 26, next week up to 28, 29.
Perfect.
I know. It is a total jinx because you know it's coming. It's just a matter of time. At some point, it's going to turn and it's going to be a mess. But it's been a really beautiful, dry September. Knock on wood.
Well, just don't jinx it. Let's get into October. People can still go in the pool, enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I think October is going to be gorgeous. Dialed in. Let us
calling your shot.
All of October. Let's golf all of October.
I would love that. There's nothing worse than when you start to get the delays in the morning, the frost delay. It starts to get cold, windy, wet. It's a mess. Right? We might have a match next week, me and you, the ham and egg special up at the Nash. We're taking it to Weston, I think.
I think so, too.
Yeah,
Don't be shy to bring your game a little bit more than what you did.
The last time I played your course, I shot 79. I was 36 on the front. Fact. I played really well.
You bogeyed 18 to shoot 80 because you were pissed you couldn't shoot 79.
No.
Joe does sat in the cart with you, I remember.
Yeah, Joe was stuck with me. He was stuck with me. But I played well in the front. 36, 3 birdies. I intend on bringing that. We got a football game tonight, baseball games tonight. The Leafs are off. Obviously, they're in action again this weekend. But other games are going on throughout the NHL. And I think a lot of people in the NHL are thinking of Calgary today, and in particular, Chris Snow. If you're not familiar with this story, he's been an executive of Calgary forever. You would know him really well, Noodles, right?
Yep.
He's been suffering from ALS for a long time, and he and his family have been very public about it, which I think is incredibly courageous because it's such a difficult disease, and he's really in a bad place right now. I mean, I think it's very public about his status, and we wanted to say as a show, of course, we're thinking of the Snow family and the Flames, and I think the whole NHL community is pretty shook up by this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've known him for years and went out and sat with him. Really bright executive, a guru with analytics, all of that type of stuff. I would go and sit and talk analytics with him. That's where I learned it from years ago. Flew out and met with him. So yeah, it's very sad. There's nothing to say other than just our prayers and thoughts are with the family and Kelsey and the kids and everybody involved, because everyone, Craig Conroy spoke about it. You could tell he was visibly shaken because he's so close with the organization. So it's a sad day for the league, and a lot of love goes out to the Snows.
I hope some way they can, and I know that you can't be changing a bunch of different. I just hope that there's some way to honor the guy and recognize him. I don't know if it's through some type of award or something, but he's just like you said, the courageousness, Hayes, and the fight and the battle. I just think it's been remarkable, and they've documented it and they've been open about it. I just hope that the league, possibly the Flames, I know the Flames are going to probably do it anyway, just honor the guy with something special, that there can be a recipient of an award per year. I don't know what it is. Just I hope that there's something down the road that he can be remembered.
Yep, and I would anticipate that'll be the case for sure. All right, big games tonight. Enjoy those. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, web. We appreciate that as well. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.